Okay, welcome to the show, Penney Peirce. I am so excited to have you here.
Oh, well, I'm so glad to work with your people.
Oh,
Sounds fun.
so I found you because you wrote a book called Frequency: The Power of Personal Vibration, and I loved this book. I absolutely loved it. And I read it a number of years ago, and you should see, I showed you a little bit yesterday when we spoke briefly, but I have so many underlines. I have multiple pens and stars and I've written in the margins, and it's just one of those books that I've kind of returned to over and over again. So it really is a gift, and I first of all, thank you for that because it really spoke to me, and I'm grateful that you brought it into
Oh,
existence.
I'm so glad. It had a strange birth, I'll tell you. It
Yes.
was going to be a book called something about empathy, and it was going to be a follow-up to The Intuitive Way, which was the first book. And
Mhm.
my publisher had published The Secret and went out on the road with Rhonda Byrne, and she came back and said, "Penny, people aren't ready for empathy yet." So can you go back to the drawing board and redo this? I said,
Wow.
okay. So it turned into Frequency.
Well, I'm glad that it worked out that way because it's a beautiful book, and I hope people will check it out, and as long with all of your
Great.
other books, whatever speaks to you. But first, a little bit about you.
Yeah.
You're a respected clairvoyant empath, amongst many other things. You've written a number of books, but what is a clairvoyant empath? What does that mean? First off.
Oh, I think of it as two things, not just one thing, but I get a lot through imagery and pictures, but also I get direct knowing through my body. And I seem to kind of naturally merge into patterns of energy that people have in their body or whatever. And then as I become one with that pattern, all the knowledge, there's kind of information in it too, and it downloads into me. And then it's as though I am that person and I can
Mm,
describe it.
wow.
But other time, my whole training was as a graphic designer and visual, artist. So that's why I think I still get a lot of visual cues. As I started doing readings and so forth, it went from the visual into auditory and then from auditory into tactile. So it's like I came down into my body more and more. And
Ah,
that tactile thing, at first it was literal, like I would feel somebody's angina or something,
wow.
and didn't know what that was. And it was like I would get impressions in my body, and then they would release. But then that rarefied, I would say, it got more sensitive, and I started getting these huge patterns and fields of knowledge that I could
Mm.
merge into. And so that I think is tactile, but in a little more non-physical way.
Sure. So when I reached out to you for your interview, for instance, when opportunities come into your life, how do you determine whether it's a good fit? And are you feeling into the energy of what your gut says and your instinct initially? Like, can you explain to me as an example this, the experience of this interview coming to into fruition, for instance?
Yeah, it's almost like when I hear somebody's name, almost, I will get a sense of contracting or expanding.
Hmm.
And often when I get that contracted feeling, it's something that is like below my natural vibration. It's not quite a fit.
Sure.
And then others, when it just expands, I just go with it. If I don't feel like a hesitation or a snag, I let it flow. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Okay, well, we're going to talk a lot about frequency today. So, first off, can you explain a little bit by what you mean by frequency and personal vibration?
Everything has a vibration,
Sure.
and we do too, right? But what I noticed was that when you put your attention in the quote outside world and you're around all kinds of different people who have all kinds of different frequencies, there's a tendency to frequency match with other people.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're depressed or critical or victimy, you'll start to feel awful. Your energy will drop, and
Mm-hmm.
you'll start to match their energy, and you'll feel depressed or awful.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's about discriminating, I think, the different vibrations of things and starting to walk through the world with that kind of sensitivity.
Mm,
And what does that mean? Well, I discriminate between looking to the outside world where we try to match each other in order to stay safe,
mm-hmm,
like a tribal thing. And then we match things that are below our frequency and that it's detrimental to us. We
mm,
can also match things that are above our frequency and then feel better and learn things too.
sure.
But the other part of it is that inside of us, there is a steady kind of frequency that is, I think it's our soul, basically, the soul vibration. And I call
Mm,
that your home frequency.
yes.
So that when you look inside yourself and you get centered and you drop inside and get really quiet, you are the same all the time. It's like the light in a baby's eyes. It
Mm,
was there. It was probably in us in every lifetime we've had, and it motivated us to do what we've done. So if you're not matching other people's vibrations, you can come inside yourself and find that steady, harmonious home frequency and settle into that. And the more you choose that, the more of the soul's wisdom actually gets through. So then
yes.
there's a process of saturating into your own home frequency so that your body starts to run on that vibration instead of fear.
Mm,
And then you put that out through your aura and the field around you. And then your life starts to get aligned with that vibration and you get opportunities that fit for that kind of vibration. Then you're on the same wavelength as people, right?
mm-hmm.
And it makes things so much easier and more creative. But then you can read, and you don't have to not be with other people. You can just notice the frequencies of things, like the
Sure.
frequencies of plants or trees or birds, or, they all have different kinds of subtle variations.
So when you were talking, I just had this vision from your book. You have this chart in the book called The Scales of Everyday Vibrations, which I'll just hold up here, even though most of this is audio, just for
Oh,
anybody who wants
yeah,
to see this.
yeah.
So I know, I'm sure you remember it, but this chart I've just kept in my head is, it starts at the top as high frequency and fast, expansive, soul love, all these high frequency body, senses, emotions, and thoughts. And then at the bottom, it's low frequency, slow, dense, ego, fear, kind of these thoughts that are on the other end of the scale. And it's so helpful to see, kind of to imagine these things as an actual wave of frequency, and these high frequency
Right,
things, and being able to
right.
visualize it, and then
Hmm.
these low frequency, because I think that we all feel, we can feel the difference between the expansiveness of joy and the contractedness of fear. But to actually be able to imagine the wave, for me, has been really a beautiful thing that I can carry with me. So I just wanted to
Yeah.
bring that up because I thought it could be a good visual for other people as
It
well.
is, I think, and even if you just kind of recall through the day or the last couple of days, you can kind of feel when you were really open and clear and you were kind of curious and excited and things are moving and you were connecting. And then something knocks you off center, a phone
Mm-hmm.
call or something, and you just close down like a little
Yes.
sensitivity plant, and
Yes.
and then you can feel it if you slow down and watch. Your breathing changes. You pull away. You're not quite in. You're connected to your reality,
Yes.
and then you can't think well at
Yes.
that point either. So you have to like try to remember or notice that happened and then say, well, I don't really want to feel this way. I think I'll get recentered and
Yes.
breathe and try to get back into my home frequency again. And you have to learn to do that. I think we have to,
Yes.
because we choose, our reality, really. We choose how we want to feel.
And I want to talk about some of the ways we can kind of return to our home frequency in a second.
Mhm.
First, I want to address, kind of, we're in the middle of this pandemic. A lot of people are experiencing fear, stress, anxiety. People are worried about their health. They're worried about their loved ones' health.
Mhm.
They're losing jobs. They're mourning the loss of loved ones, financial stress. I mean, there are very real things to
Plus, they're
be.
cooped up and frustrated,
Yes.
and they're protesting against having to be quiet.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So there's very real things happening right now in our collective consciousness. the way I'm experiencing it, some of the difficulties I'm having are, I'm a new mom, and I found the minute I became a mom, I started worrying more. I started catastrophizing, and I think I just started kind of scanning the environment for threats.
Mhm.
And so I get that. And then we entered this pandemic, and I've really been trying to work through like all this extra fear I'm carrying around. And it's been a journey for me, a big journey. And so I just resonate with what everybody's feeling, and I want to say, like, I understand what people are feeling out there, and there's a way that we can kind of become more present and handle these difficulties in a more present way that's actually going to help the collective consciousness, I believe.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
with that being said, can you help us understand at this time? Help us, Penny, help us. Help us understand at a time like this, what can we be doing to really help ourselves manage? Because it's not like we're imagining, it's not like we're living, it's like there's real threats and real things that are hard. So, how we can really help ourselves through this time.
In many ways, we have to proceed as though we're lucky. And as a lot of it's about our thinking, do you know?
Mm-hmm.
Sure, wear your mask, do the things you need to do to just take care of business in the physical realm. And yet, in the inner realm, which is thoughts and feelings and energy and consciousness in general, you have to get your attitude straight. And things in the physical world, like I lost a third of my life savings. And when I said, I'm just going to look away. And I am just going to proceed. What would I be doing if I still had my life savings? And I said, well, I'd be creating, I'm doing a new project. I would be doing the same thing. So why don't you do it with a happy attitude and as though everything is proceeding as it should?
Did you have a moment of like allowing yourself to feel like the grief or the loss, or
Oh yeah, boy, I
you just
contracted like,
you feel
like
it?
that. Oh
So you're
boy,
not
did
just like
I.
in denial, like, oh, I'm just going to push it away. You allow
No,
yourself to
no.
feel it first and
Yes.
then
Yes,
proceed.
I did. Well, you can't help it. You just go on a reactionary
Mm-hmm.
thing. And, I remember one time at Christmas, my father had given me a fair amount of money at that time. And somehow I lost it. It was in a card and I lost it in all the pile of wrapping paper. And it got, I thought, thrown out. And my mother was furious at me because I was unappreciative. And here was this big loss and everything. So I said to my father, I'm just going to act like I received the money and I'm going to benefit from it. And he
Oh.
just looked at me like, like he couldn't
How
believe it.
old were you?
Oh gosh, I don't know, 18 or
Okay.
something like that. I was young, and then it turned up, you know, but it was the shift of the attitude of like not going into panic mode, just saying, I'm going to have it anyway and it'll be fine, and then it was. The
Mm.
other thing I've been feeling is like it's already over, like it's done. And I had this vision that I was like diving down deep in the ocean and going through all this stuff. And then I surfaced like this dolphin or mermaid or something and came out of the water and my whole aura was just cleaned off, squeaky clean. And
Mm.
there was nothing left in my aura. It
Mm.
was just spacious, like the feeling like no karma, no nothing, just me, just the soul vibration was there. And I could feel that somehow this process of going through this thing that we're, what we call it, an epidemic, a pandemic, whatever it is, that this was our chance to really clear ourselves. But from that point of view of having felt that it was already over and that I was already this kind of different being,
Mm.
I now can feel that now.
Mm.
And so I'm just acting as if,
Yeah.
and I'm just not down about things, you know?
Great.
So I think a lot of it is, I mean, of course, you've got your radar out for your child, and we have that. I have a 101-year-old stepfather who I have to kind of keep an eye on. But still, the fear doesn't have to come in with that. It can be about
Mm.
noticing what you notice and being very mindful and alert, but still calm, right? You're still centered and you're still proceeding from the fact that you're in your home frequency and you put your baby and your family in your home frequency, and
Mhm.
then they have their home frequency, and everybody's is matching up in these mutually inclusive balls of reality,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
And there is consciousness in there about life purpose and being healthy and living this kind of a life where we're lucky to be alive now because of the huge transformation going on. I
yes.
do believe that we are lucky now, that and there is something major going on that has not happened on the earth before.
I agree.
So,
I
yeah.
agree. I do see so many gifts that are unraveling during this time. For me, on a micro level within my family and this time together and this, being all together and eating dinner, all of our meals at home. And
Mm,
there's something beautiful in the micro level. And then on the macro level, as far as the planet goes, the
right.
planet's getting a rest and people are like, I think we just discussed yesterday, there's more of a kind of a collective consciousness of kind of people coming together in this more global space. So there
Yeah.
are many gifts, and I truly believe that everything happens for a reason, and I think that's been one of the principles I come back to when I do feel that fear come up. I'm like, what is
Mm.
this here to teach me? Like, how can
Mhm.
I kind of come back to that home frequency?
In each case where you start to feel the fear, which is like you notice, you call it fear because you had a contraction.
Yes.
So, what am I noticing
Yes.
right now? And is it real? Is there something I am giving myself advice about, something to pay attention to right now?
Yep.
Or is it just that I'm feeling everybody else's fear?
Sure.
Right. And so that's an intuitive skill right there, is paying attention to, is it real? Is it mine? Is it the collective? Where is this coming from? Is it in
Yes.
the future as like an event wave that's coming, like an earthquake's
Mhm.
going to happen or something? Or is it now? And you can start to tune in and discriminate different kinds of causes. Do you
Okay.
know?
Yeah.
I think that's where intuition development is going these days. It's partly for us to tune into the states of being,
Yeah.
because there are various levels of contraction, and they're not all bad. They're about focus.
Okay.
Sometimes it's not about fear always. It's sometimes about, I need to zoom down and pay attention to this one thing here in this letter I'm writing, or whatever.
Yeah.
uh, yeah.
Okay, so two questions just kind of came out, or thoughts. So one is when you mentioned kind of this, like if an event wave is coming to you. Well, me in my catastrophizing thing where I would just go to these terrible scenarios, I think, how do you know, is it a different, since you've worked with your intuition and you've kind of you're able to discriminate between the different kind of energies, is it a different energy coming to you when it's like something that's like a prophesizing, like it's a message coming about the future, feels different than something that's coming from your imagination that's created out of fear?
Probably
That makes sense.
if your mind is going into those kinds of scenarios, the
Yeah.
worst possible scenarios, it's probably not real.
Yeah.
When it's real, often you just almost instinctively just go somewhere else. You don't go to that place where it would happen, or you just,
Okay.
your body does a lot of it for you. When you just relax, the body will say, I don't feel like leaving the house right now, and
Got
you
it.
don't know why.
Got it.
but you're working with the flow because you don't have a need to be in that automobile accident, right?
Sure.
you know you don't have a need to have a virus.
So, and then the second thing you were saying is kind of the idea of when we are taking in this energy from this collective fear and mentality. And for me, I realized at the beginning of this pandemic, I was reading the news all the time. I was reading, seeing what everybody was saying. I wanted to know everything about what to look for and what the symptoms
Yeah,
were and if it
yeah.
affected children and all these things. But I felt like I was doing it too much, and I realized I needed to create boundaries for myself because I was taking in all, I mean, a headline is basically geared to make you want to click it, and the more fearful it makes you, usually the more you want to click it.
Mhm.
So I was realizing that I needed to be informed and find a balance, because I can't stick my head in the sand, but I also can't live in that space where this collective fear mentality in the media is.
Yeah.
So anyway, that just made me think of, that's one tool that I've used to kind of protect myself. But what are other ways we can protect ourselves and stay in our home frequency during this time and not allow the external chatter influence us?
I think a lot of it's just practicality and common sense. Like, yeah, we needed the information about what is this thing? How does it spread? What can we do? What sterilizes things? All that kind of just factual stuff we need. I just stick with what do we need to know to take care of ourselves and each other. And and then after you know that, you don't have to watch all the headlines so much anymore. I just kind of figure I'll know what I need to know now. That praise Allah, but tie your camel to the post, right? It's like go for the higher idealistic situation, but you still got your details here on earth to take care of. I think when you are getting those contractions, that's where I said, pay attention right then to, where does your mind tend to go and why does it want to go to the worst possible scenario and catastrophizing?
Yeah.
Instead of just sitting there noticing, okay, I just had this thought or this response, but what is it really? What's it all about? Is it actual or is it something in my childhood or
Yeah, I'm all about that. I've done so much
uh,
psychotherapy. I feel like it's all about connecting
yeah.
back to the, yeah, childhood experiences. Okay, so what advice would you give people who are caught in financial difficulties right now? Because that's a real kind of life thing that
Yeah.
also could be something I think you could help people with.
Well, first thing I think again is that attitude of not going around and around on the tape loop of how bad everything is and how scared I am and how bad it's going to be, and stop it and get centered and then think, what could I do to make money right now? Or how could I save money right now? Or how can we be more efficient right now? Or whatever. And that's just problem solving,
Mm-hmm.
But you've got to get yourself in the right state of mind first.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think a lot of people are going to come out of this and they're not going to want to go back to their old jobs.
Yeah.
They're going to want to create something new or different or collaborate with other people or find partnerships. And I think there'll be a new wave of innovation that comes out of this,
I agree. Would you mind walking us through an exercise that could help us stay in our home frequency?
In my book, there's a pretty good way to kind of find your home frequency. It's pretty much the same for everybody when you get down to the core of it, because it resonates with certain states of being. Like for me, it's cheerfulness or
Mhm.
sincerity or curiosity. There's a lot of really good states of being, even like sweetness, is a
Mm.
wonderful one. But if you go in a meditation, and I'm not going to lead you through it because it would take too long, but you imagine, first of all, your worst possible scenario. Like if you had bad luck and you lost everything and people died around you or whatever, every possible bad thing you can think of. And
Mhm.
then notice how your body's feeling, how you're feeling, and how it really contracted you get. Then take a step back, put that up on the shelf, go back to your present moment neutral self, and then create your best possible scenario where you have good luck and everybody likes you and they help you and you get opportunities and things work and you're successful and it rolls on, and then
Mhm.
feel how that feels. It's almost like take a snapshot of the two different ones. So
Mhm.
then you take the best possible one, put that on the shelf, go back to neutral. Then you go back to the worst possible one again, activate that and feel, back down to that awful feeling. Put it back on the shelf, get neutral, go back to the good one. Oh, open up. And you do that for, I don't know, 4 or 5, 6 times if you can. But you get to the point where I don't want to go back to that negative one. I don't like it.
Mm.
And at that point, you just say, but wait a minute, I just like the other one. So I like the way that feels. I'm just going to start feeling it. That's your home frequency feeling. And it doesn't
Mm.
require willpower. It's just as if that were your reality now, that's the way you would feel. And it's frictionless kind of. It's like you think of something and there's a way for it to happen. You have permission, and
Mhm.
provision. That's the normal state of the soul. The soul is not fearful. So when you can identify that one state and how your body responds to being in that state of being, I call it your preferred state, you know,
Mhm.
then you have something to measure against. And we need that because we backslide constantly because we match people with negative attitudes, for instance, or we're taught to do that, to commiserate with others in order to have
Mm-hmm.
some things in common. So we just have to catch ourselves every time we backslide a little and go, oh, there I go again. Come back to the center,
Mm-hmm.
remember your state, and then you can have a sort of shortcut to get back in your home frequency, like a texture. Like for me, sometimes it's like a pink Angora sweater or a butter
Mm-hmm.
melting or some nice feeling. Other people, like I saw a dancer once who just made this figure-8 motion with her hands, and that waving and rocking feeling she loved, and that was how she got into hers. So people
Mm.
have different ways of quickly remembering what the state feels like to them. It could be playing with a puppy, or
Mm.
laughing and giggling, or looking in a baby's eyes, or whatever it is, that you can slide back in pretty quickly. It doesn't
Yeah.
take a long time. Yeah.
Yes. And when we're in that state, it just feels like any problems in your life, that the solutions come more easily. It feels like everything's
Right.
manageable. It's just
Right.
the world looks so different from that place. And it
It does.
really,
You don't really see things as problems at that point. Then you see them as just parts of the flow that are happening for you because there's something that you're trying to show yourself.
mm,
A snag can show you where you're feeling like you have self-deprivation or something, or that people don't like you, or you're not good enough, or so. And then you can correct it because there's always information in a so-called problem. And I think it really is only just a brief stoppage of the flow
mm-hmm.
so that you can see something that you're trying to see. And
Yes.
then once you get it, that it just moves on, you know.
Yes. 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 Okay, actually, I want to read one quote from the book that talks about kind of this cycles and the wave of life. When you feel stuck or fear an ending, remember that you exist within a life wave, that life is always moving. Waves have high crests and low troughs, and stickiness is just an indication of an impending turn in your wave. Nothing ever truly stops. You can count on an ongoing momentum to move you repeatedly and ever more quickly now through ups and downs and beginnings and endings. The more you allow yourself to relax into the current and feel that everything and everyone is somehow in the same flow with you, the easier the turns will be. I love that quote.
Yeah, I wrote that, huh? I swear, I don't remember half the things that are in the books, some of them, but
It's amazing. That's
yeah,
how I feel when I read back in my journal. I'm like, oh, that is so wise. Like, wow, I can't believe I come up with it. Yes, that is from your book, and it's beautiful. So can you talk about the creation cycles and kind of the waves of life? I think that's a really
yeah,
interesting point.
that is a nice one too. It's based on an equilateral triangle where at the top you have the being, and then over on the right side you have doing, and the left side having. So it goes be, do, have. And that is a process of coming from spirit. And the coming down is a process of inspiration and curiosity, and you're motivated and you're, hot to trot, you're all on it, and you've got an idea that you want to do. And it comes down toward the doing part is also connected to the conscious mind, where things become acknowledged and definable, and you can grab it. Otherwise, before that, it's kind of intuition comes into the doing part, and it translates almost like from the reptile brain, into action. Um, and so there is a sense of a shift there into from non-physical to physical. So doing, then you start acting and materializing things through tasks and time until you get to the last part where you have results, which is the body, it's the physical world.
Mm.
So at that point, basically, the energy's gotten used up from the whole cycle. And at the point where you have results, truly, basically, you're usually bored. But then fear kicks in because the next part of the cycle is to let go of having and go back up toward being, which to the left brain at that point, it looks like the void. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing out there. So I'm not going there. I'm going to turn around and go back to more doing.
Yeah.
So you go backwards and then you try to do it over again. Or you try to generate willpower and make it happen. Or really from mind, you get really clever and you try to reinvent it or do it differently or something or more. And then you'll do that a number of times. You'll go, from do, have, do, have, do, have, do, have, back and forth. This is really, I think, the addictive process. This is about, just being afraid to let go and be out of control. And it exhausts you. So eventually, when you're exhausted, you finally let go. you
Mm-hmm.
know, because after having, you need to almost like take inventory at that point. Say, look what I just accomplished. Isn't that nice? I feel great. I set out to do what I did, and wonderful. So then exhale, relax, open up, stop thinking, stop doing. And guess what? You're immediately back in being again. There's no actual linear space to cross or anything. You're just back to the home frequency,
Yeah.
which is sort of the trick, And then you get once you just let yourself have that, I call it liminal space, that space between things,
Yeah.
you get filled up again. You remember, oh, I'm the soul. I have access to everything,
Yeah.
And now you start a new cycle of
Yes.
creativity. But of course, the problem is that we get stuck in the physical plane. We get attached to our creations. We don't want change, and we don't spiral upward and onward. We try to go backwards half the time.
Yeah, and
So,
expectations of other and what the world is expecting of us or perceiving us.
right, right.
So can you give me an example of what that would look like?
You've been on a job hunt, and you're looking for your perfect job, and you've done all the work. You've kind of fleshed it out in your mind. You did all the research online. You went and had interviews. You did it. You got your job. You did your job for a couple of years, and now they're laying you off. But you try to keep the job by going backwards and redefining yourself or doing a better job and saying, look, I'm really good. I could make this lateral shift here. I could do this, and resist it. Or if you get laid off, then you still try to get the same kind of job again. But if you let go and relax at that point, you may, as you go back to the top of the triangle and go into the imaginal realm, which is what's up there, the unified field that contains everything, you may suddenly get this insight, oh gosh, I don't want to work in a corporation anymore. I
Mm-hmm.
want to be a park ranger or something, I
Yeah.
love trees.
Yeah.
And it comes out of nowhere. And then it's like you go, that feels so good. And now you're motivated again. And now you start a new cycle.
Oh, that's helpful. Thank you. Kind of switching gears a little bit. A lot of us are in close quarters with our loved ones. How does our vibration influence our relationship with others?
Well, of course, what we said before already about frequency matching.
Mm-hmm.
When one person gets upset in close quarters and you're all sharing a field of energy, either you try to get rid of that person or you match them, and then everybody feels bad. So if somebody's afraid or angry or frustrated, other people actually can get scared at that point, right? And then they'll act out the way they try to avoid their fear, either by running away or by getting mean and violent and angry or depressed. So people have their ways of avoiding feeling bad. So I think a lot of it is to just keep getting recentered, but also look for the soul in other people.
Yeah.
Honestly, who are they really? And
Yeah.
keep validating who they are. It's just a chance to heal all
Yes.
kinds of close relationships.
Yes. That's huge. Just having that compassion when I don't, it was in some psychotherapy that I've studied is, when I saw my husband or when I wasn't fully present or when he wasn't fully present, we would always remember that not to take it personally because it's not truly them, it's their
Right.
old pain, it's their old stuff. And when you don't take it
Mhm.
personally, you're more able to stay centered and balanced, which
Mhm.
is has the better chance of bringing them back to that home frequency and that centered
Right.
place. So
Right.
you're not kind of building this fire together. When the other person gets sucked in, then it just gets worse and worse and can
Right.
spiral.
I always say too that you can allow the other people or other person to, it's like you have a relationship entity that's made out of both of your energy fields that contains all the knowledge that both of you have had, and then that becomes like a guide to
Yeah.
both people. So that means that if I'm looking at my partner, I'm saying that whatever comes out of their mouth is something that would have come out of mine if I could have thought of it, and so I listen, like it's for both of us. And if it's
Yeah.
something they're upset about, then I must have that in me to some degree. Maybe it's not as much, but let me fix it in myself or think about it in myself before I go thinking it's just in you over there and create separation again.
Yes.
Because as soon as
Yes.
we create that separation, everybody freaks out,
Mhm.
really. But it doesn't mean you have to be isolated in your individuality either, right? Because then that's the opposite pole. It's
Mhm.
almost like I'm alone and I have to do everything myself.
Yeah, we don't want that. So it's basically being able to kind of share whatever you're experiencing and feeling, and also observing it within yourself, and doing our own personal work to try to come back to our home frequency, and but be able to be supported by someone else, and have the other person, the more they're able to stay in their home frequency, the
Right.
better off you both
Yeah.
are.
I think sometimes it's a commitment to keep our hearts open. Do you know that that's the most important thing in
Mm.
any relationship is that because fear always comes up into the space of love because we're processing it, right? Every time you say I'm going to be in love and this is wonderful, okay, well then all the yes buts come up into the space
Mhm.
because you're trying to be in the love,
Mhm.
right? And so everybody closes down because of that, and we just need to understand that and then say, oh, okay, let's remember our commitment to keep our hearts open. Let's talk about it and see what the understanding is here. It just came from that, or it's just that. Okay, fine. Now we're back.
Yes.
And so communication's important. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, and sometimes space is important too. Just let people be quiet. You
Mhm.
know, let them have some time to themselves, be in nature, whatever they need to do it themselves.
And I believe you also said in the book that just like everything in life, relationships also have cycles where you come close to each other and then you kind of
Right.
get apart and you come close. And it's just like that oscillation of all these other things in our life. It's constantly moving and
Mm,
it's constantly in the wave form. And if we can just know that, then you don't feel abandoned when someone's far away, if that's your
right.
inclination. You just say, oh, we're just in this moment of separation and then we'll come back together, and then that moment of closeness. And
Right. And especially if you include the other person in your sphere, in your ball of energy, and the ball can be huge. Maybe they've gone off to Europe or something, and they're not abandoning you. They're just, the ball has gotten bigger, and they're still inside
mm-hmm.
of it. You're still
Yes.
connected. You
Yes.
know, it's
Yes.
all the way the mind thinks about things.
Yes. Totally. So, do you believe we all have a specific calling or purpose?
I think that our main purpose is to balance ourselves out. If we have imbalances, like maybe we've been too masculine and warlike, and now we need feminine energy and to be a mother or something, or maybe we've been the other way and we need to be a little more assertive in our careers or something, So
Mm-hmm.
there are always these kind of polarities of characteristics that we have within us that the soul is always watching to find how can we integrate both sides of any polarity and to become more whole. And then then there's so many points, right? There's not just polarities anymore. We have many points we're trying to integrate into ourself and
Mm-hmm.
not reject anything in particular. So I think the main life purpose we all have is to create wholeness within ourselves and remember who we are as souls. But we're all built differently. We have different astrology signs, different kind of bodies and minds and family upbringings. And I think we're each built for a certain kind of thing. And we have interests along those lines. And some of that comes from our past lives. But I don't think that's a lot about life purpose. But it's sometimes in expressing yourself authentically and according to your pattern, you find harmony, you find beauty, you find things that connect you to the collective consciousness, to, more spiritual kinds of ideas and energies. So I don't think my life purpose is to be a graphic designer and do great great brochures, but that helps me learn other things.
We may have covered this already, but how does living in our home frequency cause us to find and fulfill our destiny?
Well, I think that when you're in your home frequency, you have an ease of working with your right brain. When you're not in your home frequency, the left brain thinks it's in charge. And of course, it's actually not in the present moment very much. It's more about memories from the past and how to stay safe. And this experience now is like something else that happened before. And I have to be careful. I guard this whole reality that I've defined and set up, and so it's always fairly negative, but it is necessary. It's not a bad thing because, the left brain is what allows us to be conscious and allows us to see reality. Somebody said the function of the left brain is to interrupt the right brain because, to put a focus on something, because the right brain is total immersion into the unified field. Everything's there at once. You don't have a self there. You are the whole thing, right? And that's the entrance into intuition, is that direct knowing. So I think that when you are in your home frequency, your right brain is open, you have intuition, you're directly connected with that unified field and the soul or the collective consciousness. And it's so easy to get good guidance and be in the flow and have synchronicity and so forth. You get out of it and you go into the left brain, which then is into the rules and the yes buts, and it blocks a lot of stuff because of opinion and habit. And so you're operating as in partial clarity.
Is there a message that you think people need to hear?
Well, anything that will help people feel like they can handle the energy. It's like if you're feeling confused, don't be afraid to ask for help. Get help, connect with people. Don't be isolated and caught in ego and feeling all, separate and alone, because that's not going to work anymore. And if you're too merged with people who have a negative consciousness, then get separated, and find your own home frequency, and then connect with people who are on that wavelength. But don't let yourself be drained by negative people, but don't feel like you have to do everything alone either.
And being in our home frequency is also, I would imagine, good for our health and our immune system, right?
Right. Because it keeps your heart open, and that helps your thymus, which is, immune system. Yeah.
Another reason to stay in our home frequency. Do you think we could end by you doing that exercise? It's like the diamond energy.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I have a meditation that's about diamond light. And when you visualize diamond light, that's really the closest I think we can get to the soul frequency. It's very pure and glossy and clear. So if you want to close your eyes and just get centered and quiet and feel your body and where your skin ends and the air begins. And then imagine that standing behind your back is your diamond light self. In other words, it's your energy body that's made of that pure, clear light, which is basically your soul self. It has no blockages. It does not have fear. It has connection to all the beings in the world and to the evolution process. It's very wise, and it knows what is really accurate for you and helps bring the events you need and the lessons you need, everything to you. So imagine that it puts its hands on your shoulders and you can feel that diamond light frequency. And just let yourself adjust your frequency upwards a little bit so that you start to come more in resonance with the diamond light. And then allow your diamond light self, which looks like you, to step inside or slide inside you from the back to the front, and then kind of settle in and match up with your physical body, part for part. And as it comes in, it's like you have a diamond light brain inside your physical brain. You have diamond light eyes inside your physical eyes, and diamond light vocal cords, and diamond light heart, and organs, and bones, and bone marrow, and blood. That there's a perfect divine pattern of each thing in your body that is now coming in to take over and guide and help return the physical self to memory of its ideal self. So just take a minute and let all the parts of your body be infused with their diamond light counterpart. The tissues, even the fat cells, for goodness sake, just what every part has a diamond light counterpart, which is going to educate and re-educate all the little particles on how to be in harmony, how to be healthy, how to be a transmitter of soul energy, how to receive and flow. And then open the skin and let that diamond light flow out all around you so that your whole aura is filled with that high gloss clarity. And it has a tendency to just melt away any shadows or any darkness or any fear or clumped up energy, and just return it all to a beautiful state of being. So it's a really nice meditation to merge with yourself this way, because you are the diamond light self, and you are coming in now and saying, I'm here and I know what I'm doing, and I'm receiving my guidance from the great mind of all beings. And I'm going to be here to help solve problems and give direction and keep you in your home frequency and in your inner harmony. So let it work on you for just a little bit here, tuning you up. Even the air you breathe, you could imagine it's becoming like diamond light. It's like crystalline, clear air from a mountaintop. So the oxygen that's coming into your body is made of diamond light. You can imagine that that light out around your body can expand out, and it can include the people in your family and your friends or your coworkers, whoever you want, and that it sets a tone for the people you work with. So kind of take a mental snapshot or a sense of that feeling state of what this actually feels like for your body, and how happy a lot of those organs and cells are that there's somebody there now who can give it good instruction. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back and just leave yourself sitting in that diamond space.
Thank you so much.
You are so welcome.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Penny. Is there, where should people go if they want to learn more about you?
Oh, my website is just my name, but my name is spelled a little oddly. It's Penney, and then the last name is Peirce. So pennypeirce.com.
Great, great. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Oh, thanks for inviting me.